Hello and welcome to this video for Station 3. Station 3 is estimating tooth size. So in this particular station, we have found a Tyrannosaurus Rex tooth, and typically that is a common find. Uh, Tyrannosaurus Rex teeth are lost similarly to the way sharks lose their teeth. So finding a T-Rex tooth without the rest of the animal is very common for paleontologists. So when they find a tooth, they like to use it to try and figure out how big the dinosaur might have been. So that's what we are simulating in this activity. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to measure the length of the tooth. Um, we're going to measure the length of the tooth and compare it to a diagram of a Tyrannosaurus Rex skull and see if we can figure out how big the skull might have been for that animal. So here we have our tooth, and we're going to measure the length of the tooth. And this is the diagram that we're going to use right here. So if you look at the diagram, as to where the teeth edge is regarding the jaw, we really should kind of simulate that when we measure the length of this tooth. So this would be the jawbone here. So we would measure from the tip of the tooth to the jawline there. Or we could measure from the tip of the tooth to the jawline there. So we have to make a decision. So the question is, what side is the outside? So it looks like the tooth is oriented that way. So if it's oriented that way, then this is the outside. But it really could be on the other side of the animal, but we're just going to use the same orientation. I'm going to measure from here to the end of the tooth. So here I'm going to measure, and it's 16 centimeters. 16 centimeters to the end. So I need to record that. Tooth length. (16 centimeters). Okay. And then I'm going to use my diagram, and I'm going to find the largest tooth on the diagram, and I'm going to measure its length also. So if you're a bad judge of which one's the longest, just measure them and see. This one is 2.8 or 2.9 in length. This one is 3, no, I'm not 2, I'm starting there. So it's 1.8. And this one is 1. You see why I'm not starting at the end? Because that is obviously cut short. So I'm starting there. I just have to remember that I started here and I have to subtract 1. So this one is also like 1.9. This one here is the biggest one. It is 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters, 2.3 centimeters in length. So on the diagram, tooth length, 2.3 centimeters. All right. So now I'm going to measure the length of the skull. So again, I'm going to start there because that's obviously not long enough to be a whole centimeter. And right, so this says 25.7, but remember I got to subtract 1 because of this side. So that's 24.7 centimeters. .7 centimeters, and that was the diagram skull length. Okay. Now I want to estimate how big the actual skull was. So I'm going to put the diagram tooth length. So diagram tooth. Okay. Over the diagram skull. And then I know the tooth length here, 16 centimeters, actual tooth length. And then what I want to find is the actual skull length. Okay, so I'm just going to plug my numbers in. So our diagram tooth is 2.3 centimeters. And my diagram skull length is 24.7 centimeters. And my actual tooth length is 16 centimeters. And I want to solve for x. All right, so you just cross multiply. You remember how to do that. So I'm going to take 24.7 times 16. And then I'm going to divide by 2.3. And that gives me x equals 171.8 centimeters. So there's 100 centimeters in a meter. So that's 1 whole meter and 71, almost 72 centimeters. So 171.8 is, well, if you just look here, how long this is. My cape isn't even long enough. This only goes to 150. Okay, so the actual animal was 171.8 centimeters. So that's 1 meter and 71 centimeters in length. So there's a little over 3 feet in a meter. So that skull is almost 6 feet long. That skull is almost 6 feet long. All right, so then another thing that they might want to know is, well, how big would the animal have been? Okay, how big would the animal have been? So this is our skull, and we're going to use that to figure out how big the animal might have been. All right, so we're going to start with our skull length, actual skull length. And that was 171.8 centimeters. Okay, so now we're going to use a model of a T-Rex right here. And I'm going to assume that it is to scale. Okay, so how big would our animal be that lost this tooth? All right, I'm going to need this again. No, I don't need that. Sorry. Oh yeah, we do. Sorry about that, just for a little comparison. Okay, so now the question is, we're going to measure the length of this animal's skull and the length of its whole body from the tip of his nose to the tip of his tail. So the first thing we have to do is figure out where we're going to measure our skull at. Okay, so this is what we've got to compare here. So where are we measuring our skull? So obviously from the nose, but back here, I mean, this, I don't think it's all the way over here. I don't think so. Okay, because this is like part of the nose bridge, like here, and these little bumps up here. I think, and the edge of the jaw, right there. I mean, there's the edge of the jaw on this. I think we probably want to go about here to measure this. I don't think we want to come all the way back here. So I'm going to measure from here to about here. So our model, my tape is on the floor again. All right. So I'm going to start here. Remember, I have to subtract 1. And I'm going to measure to about here, where that is. And that is, it says 6. But I'm going to subtract 1. Remember, I'm starting here at 1. So 6 minus 1 is 5. So 5. So model length, skull length, is 5 centimeters. And now I'm going to measure the length of the animal. So I'm going to start here from the nose and try and get, his head's kind of curved there. And curve with the tail, because I want this to be kind of as accurate as possible. So it's at 4.5 or 34.5. But remember, I started at 2, at 1, at 2, excuse me, at 1. Yeah, that. I have to subtract 1. So that's 33.5. 33.5 for our model length. All right, so there's our data. So we're just going to do the same thing we did before. We want to know the actual body length. How big is this animal? So I'm going to take the skull length, model skull length, over the model body length. And I'm going to put my actual skull length that I calculated in the previous part. And I'm solving for X. That will be the actual body length. Okay, so I'm ready to plug my numbers in. Model skull length was 5 centimeters. And we're going to divide it by the model body length. And I know the actual skull length because I calculated that in the last part. And I'm going to solve for X. So we're just going to do the same thing we did before. All right. So we have 33.5 cross multiply times 171.8. And then we're going to divide by 5. And that gives us 1,000. 151.06 centimeters. There's 100 centimeters in there's 100 centimeters in a meter. So that is going to be the equivalent of 11.5 meters long. And there's just over 3 feet in a meter. So this animal is about 35 feet long, about. That's how big the animal is. Okay? So that's how scientists might try and figure out or guess or hypothesize how big a T-Rex would be with a tooth that they might discover. All right, thank you for watching the video on Station 3.